Um, Professor, one of the main challenges that you highlighted in that response was the role that the media is going to play to obviously slander any kind of positive developments that the left is able to accomplish. And we've seen that time and time again. We've also seen the mainstream media will, as you've pointed out countless times, just completely malign or force out of the conversation anybody that they don't want to engage with. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on the rise in the Substack model of journalism, with journalists like Matt Taibbi and Glenn Greenwald and other abandoning the traditional newsroom model and instead opting for this backpack model where they are directly publishing to their readers. Do you think that this will have an effective way of piercing media narratives, or do you think that something more crucial is lost by abandoning the newsroom model of checking, fact checking, and that sort of thing?
Well, there's two questions to ask. One is what's being done with these opportunities. So you can have the Substack model, and you'll have can't even think of his name, the guy on Fox News now, the big shot. You have him take it over. You'll have the new version of Rush Limbaugh take it over. Okay, that can happen. The second point is, notice that these are commentary options, not news gathering. The people who write there don't have bureaus in Karachi or in Germany. They're not collecting the news. Okay, they're not what they're doing is taking the news that comes in through the mainstream media and other sources, which you can look at. You can look at other journals and so on, and they're commenting on that just the way I do. I don't have a reporter in Africa, let's say. And if I want to learn about what's happening in, say, French West Africa, there are ways to do it. You can go to the left press, where they do have third world correspondents who are there to tell you what's going on in, say, Mali. In fact, there was a good article by Ramzi Baroud about that recently. You can read the New York Times, as I do, and you get a fair sense of much of what's going on in the world. But you're not creating the news yourself. Okay, if I were to have something on Substack, or if I have given an interview in Truth Out, I'm not creating the news. I'm taking what's around there. So the sources of news remain basically the same, with all the filtering and the shaping and the options and so on. You can compensate for it. Take Sanders again. As long as he was running, the media were almost 100% against him, trying to destroy his seat. But he made it. It was an amazing success. Take a look at his position right now. He's got one of the most powerful positions in the Senate, chair of the Budget Committee. He's got powerful forces, popular forces behind him. People like Ocasio-Cortez were able to come into Congress on the wave that was built very substantially by the Sanders movement. The Sanders movement is a large part of the Progressive International, the newly formed international organization that's trying to bring together progressive forces around the world to do something. Well, that's how things happen. The media didn't like the anti-war movement in Vietnam. You had to fight it tooth and nail, but it finally made it. They didn't like the civil rights movement. And when it started moving to the north, they hated it. And Martin Luther King was pretty much destroyed, even by the liberal media, up to his assassination. But nevertheless, things break through. That's what activism is about. Change the basis by which things are happening. In fact, even take the New York Times. I mean, it has commentary today of the kind you couldn't have imagined 5 or 10 years ago. People like Jamel Bowie, for example, who was writing like that 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, take the 1619 Project in the New York Times. would have been unimaginable a couple of years ago. Well, these are all the effects of changes that are taking place. That's how things happen. That's the point where you can move. You're not going to change, to convert the institutions by convincing them. You're going to pressure them by things that are happening, just as like what happened with Biden's climate program. That's where our strength is. Our strength is with people, not with powerful institutions. But just like you don't go to the office of J.P. Morgan Chase and talk to Jamie Dimon and say, hey, you ought to do something about climate change. He knows everything you're going to tell him, but he has other priorities, like making more money. So you're not going to convince him. You can change things on the ground so that J.P. Morgan Chase faces what they call reputational risks, their term for saying the peasants are coming with the pitchforks, we better do something. And then they begin to do something. Not enough, but something. And then you keep at it. That's the way change takes place. And when you're thinking about, tactics aren't a sort of triviality that we put on the side while we think about big things. You want to get anything done, you have to think very seriously about the kinds of tactics that work.